Hi YouTube, it's Neburos. We're back with another video. I've been away for a couple days, not actually away from like I went somewhere, I just haven't been watching stuff on YouTube and whatnot to react to. Um, Thought I'd let things fester a couple days before trying to do reaction videos. And then I saw this one from Saturday, I think, and thought, all right, let's do a reaction to it. So here we are, Sydney Watson, We Shouldn't Have to Live Like This.
Definitely all living through a very strange period of time.
Not her usual. Welcome back
Hi,
to.
my name is
Oh,
Sydney.
here we go.
Welcome back to hell. Now, before we get into the meat and potatoes of this video, which admittedly will probably be a little bit less jovial than you're used to, just a reminder
That's fine.
again that I am currently running a 50% off sale on my tea website for 3 flavors that will be expiring at the end of November, although tea doesn't really expire. So if you are not put off by that and you would like a box, the tea is still perfectly fine. Use the code WeDon'tWaste for 50% off. And if you are somebody who has a restaurant or a cafe or a little coffee shop, or if you have a church or you
I
work for a
wish.
church or do some work with a church or a homeless shelter or whatever, please reach out to me because I have been giving no strings attached tea to these kind of organizations because I don't want to waste and I don't want to throw tea away. So I actually
Fair
started
enough.
writing this video a couple weeks ago before I went on my little family holiday, but it is a topic that I've wanted to address for quite some time, but never felt like I had the right way of describing my thoughts and feelings here. And I'm not suggesting that I've finally gotten that correct in this video, but I'm going to take a run at it anyway because I think a lot of this probably needs to be said. So back towards the end of August, when I first took a run at articulating my thoughts about this, I wrote about the 12-year-old girl in Dundee, Scotland, who defended her sister and herself against 2 gypsy migrants from Bulgaria. Now, at
Okay,
the
yeah, I
time when
heard
that
about
story was
this.
breaking, people were trying to cast all.
So as far as I heard, the girl got arrested and the migrants aren't, nothing was done with them. That was last I heard. And people were defending the migrants, being like, well, how do you know they're predators and stuff like that? And I'm like, so they were there, they were pestering 2 um, early teens girls to buy, I mean, the one was 12. She's not even a teen. Um, So they were pestering 2 girls for to buy like Girl Scout cookies or something, or they wanted the time. Like it doesn't make sense. Like why else would 2 grown men be hassling to a 12 and 14-year-old girl?
The blame on the girls involved, especially after the cops threw them under the bus, and the primary agitator, a man named Ali Dumana, claimed that he never touched them or attacked them like the girls were asserting, as you can hear in the clip that went viral. But eventually, the migrants ended up being arrested. This happened after the girls
Okay.
claimed that one of them was concussed after being
Man and woman are charged after schoolgirl was videoed brandishing knife. Okay.
assaulted by Dumana and either his sister or wife. It's actually a little bit confusing which, but I think it's his wife. Although with these sorts of people, she
I mean, with them, like she could be his wife and his sister. Ilhan Omar married her brother.
could be both. Just a little sprinkling of incest there. Anyway,
Yeah.
this story really distressed me.
What do they say about the Targaryens and incest?
Like, I'm sure it distressed a lot of you. And for me, I hate these stories that concern young kids and young
Yeah.
people because they shouldn't have to grow up feeling afraid. But it also sparked a national and international conversation about migrant crime in Europe. So I wasn't surprised at all to see people
Based.
painting the 12-year-old as some sort of Braveheart type. But then, only a short time later, the harrowing footage of Ukrainian refugee Irina Zrutska went viral, showing her being brutally stabbed to death and left to bleed out on the floor of a train car in North Carolina, while bystanders did nothing. And these haunting photos of her face circulated for days. And what struck me here, and a lot of other people I'm sure, was that these cases exposed a deeper failure, not just of immigration policies that allow violent foreign offenders to walk
Bit of
among
legal
us, but
policies.
of a justice system and officials who seem more concerned with the optics and their own political agendas than.
Well, the judge in the case of this absolute waste of human skin, um, It's the same judge who let him off like 14 times before, and she's got a financial stake in the mental hospital that he was sent to. So, yeah. Gee, I wonder why she let him off 14 times.
Protecting vulnerable people and their own citizens. Yes, Irina was a migrant, but a law abiding, contributing one, the kind most people are happy to live alongside.
Yeah, and I bet her last thoughts before the lights finally dimmed was, I should have stayed in Ukraine.
And our system still failed her, in the same way that it fails native born citizens in Western countries every single day. When people realized that Irina's murderer, DeCarlos DeJuan Brown Jr., was let out 14 times prior, and this last time was allowed to go back onto the streets with a written promise to appear in court, it demonstrated how utterly broken our systems are. And
Yep.
all I could personally think, watching people desecrate this girl's memorials, watching them say that she deserved what she got, all I could think here was that we shouldn't have to live like this.
No, we
Some of
really
us do
shouldn't.
not want to live in lawlessness. Not all of us are Antifa. The apparent refusal by our officials to hold repeat offenders accountable, to acknowledge the horrible and ill effects of soft on crime policies, all while hiding behind the veil of cultural sensitivity and mental health, is a moral failing that endangers us all. Even now in North Carolina, Irina's law was recently passed, which would essentially try to address soft on crime policies, focusing on pretrial detention, mental health protocols, and capital punishment.
Yeah, I mean, um, Irina's killer, he was let out 14 times, arrested 14 times, released 14 times, and the last time with a written promise to go to court because a career criminal who's been arrested 14 times is going to honor a written agreement, right? But for me, it's just it seems like you have to have a limitations, like a limitation on how many times somebody can be arrested before you hang due process and just send him off to prison, because like I think the first time, okay, it's your first offense. We'll give you we'll give you a certain degree of leniency because you know it's your first offense and we got no prior record on you. So you know what? We'll give you that shot at leniency. The second time, it's the full book, and like the third time, right? You've had due process now. You've been through it once. We gave you a chance once. We threw the book at you on the second offense. Third offense, you're off to jail. Do not pass go. Do not collect $200. That's what I think it should be done. And none of this, oh, against my human rights bullshit. You know what? Somebody who assaults and murders another person doesn't give a fig about the human rights of their victims. So, you know what? As far as I'm concerned, if you can't respect the rights of somebody else, and you feel the need to assault or, in other ways, harm them, I don't care about your human rights either. As far as I'm concerned, you forfeit your human rights. So, same kind of deal. You wouldn't have to do that level of justice for too long, I think.
In the Senate, not one single Democrat voted for it. They actually called it opportunistic and barbaric.
Wow.
Yes, because we want to prevent violent offenders from murdering women. Crazy. So much more
Yeah,
barbaric than letting crazy, violent men skin women alive. You caught us. So, full disclosure, there was really no logical place for me to put the sponsor of today's video. And before you skip past what I'm about to say,
I'm not gonna
I
skip.
really think that if you listen to no other sponsor that I ever have on this channel, this is the one that you need to watch and also the one that you need to engage with, because I picked this one specifically for this video because of how challenging it is to find information about these kind of topics and how important it is that we have
It's ground news.
AI tools and AI search tools and things like that that actually have our best interests at heart as consumers. And I think that is today's sponsor. I really, really, really like them. I use them to make this video. So please watch the integration and yeah, let's roll that baby. Have you ever noticed how DuckDuckGo and Google and lots of AI
What
tools
is
are
DuckDuckGo?
basically unusable these days? Me too. And let me tell you, it's very annoying for someone who looks up information for a living. So what's a YouTube lady to do? Well, go ahead and use FreeSpoke because they're actually trying to help users.
Okay.
FreeSpoke is an AI search tool that
It's
prioritizes
not ground
access
news,
to
guys.
neutral, clear information. Very important. And it works as you're used to. You type in a prompt, I asked it here about Gavin Newsom becoming governor, and it gave me an AI summary, one with actual citations and without all of the normal fluff and bias from other AIs. Which I won't lie is really useful to me because I do so much research to make my videos, so having little shortcuts is really nice. I find that I constantly have to fact check Grok on Twitter, but FreeSpoke's AI is infinitely easier to navigate. And of course, it is a search tool, so it also provided articles and other sources of information which are clearly labeled depending on their political lean, which is
Okay,
so unbelievably helpful. I
that's
can
pretty
even
cool.
go ahead and explore perspectives to get a balanced view of an issue. I also really like that FreeSpoke prioritizes user privacy and your searches are 100% anonymous. There's no personal tracking,
That's
no
good.
profiling, no targeted ads. Yes, you can finally talk about wanting to go ice fishing without FreeSpoke sending you a bunch of ads. So if you too want access to better information,
I love that. I remember talking. My grandparents went up to a lodge at some point a couple years back, just for some religious holiday, and just mentioned it out of the blue. I was talking with family. Next thing I know, I've got like holiday lodging ads all over the place. So I eventually then turn around and say, "Hey, listen to the person listening in on my conversations somehow. How about you send me some money? You know, you're all about me spending money and shit. How about you send me some instead?" Never got anything back. And curiously, after that, I'm not getting ads on just random conversation topics anymore either.
then click the link in the description, scan the QR code on screen, or go to freespoke.com/Sydney35. Of course, use code Sydney35 for 35% off FreeSpoke Premium, which gives you unlimited access to explore perspectives, clips with transcripts, ad-free browsing, and more.
I feel like a tool like that should be free, regardless. There shouldn't be a premium option.
This law has now passed both houses thanks to the Republican majority and made its way to the governor's desk. When he was asked about if he was going to sign it, he couldn't even answer the question.
The bill would limit
He's a politician. They don't do yes or no questions.
bail, ensure more defendants undergo mental health evaluations, and notably could help restart executions. The bill is on your desk, Governor. Will you sign it?
See, that's a yes or no question, and he can't answer it.
Well, I'm reviewing it as we speak. It's a complicated bill.
When I first started writing this video, I actually wrote in my script that I didn't think that the Scotland incident was necessarily the hill to die on with relation to two-tier policing and all the crap going on with the justice system and legal/illegal migration. But I think Arena's is, because I think for a lot of people, watching this beautiful young woman get stabbed to death very clearly and seeing
I still haven't seen the video. I don't need to see it. I've seen many versions of that sort of thing before. And I can, even now, just thinking about it, I can see the video I'm referring to quite clearly with my waking eyes.
that with our own eyes has really crystallized that our officials and authorities continually let us down by letting violent offenders walk free, by choosing optics over actual justice, and downplaying what we can see with our own eyes.
It's like the Carmelo Anthony thing. Kid goes and stabs Austin Metcalf, and it's like, oh, if you're against him, you're a racist. It's got nothing to do with that. It was a cold-blooded murder. We used to execute people who did shit like that. Now we wonder, if I say that he needs to be punished, am I going to be seen as a racist? You know what? I don't actually give a shit. These days you can be called a sexist, racist, homophobe, transphobe, all this sort of nonsense for anything, and it almost always seems to be the case that you're referred to as such just because you hold people of that particular demographic accountable for their actions. So you know what? If holding what's his face who stabbed Irina and Carmelo Anthony accountable for their actions makes me a racist, then that's a badge I'll wear with honor.
Politicians keep insisting that the sky is green, but I can very clearly see that it's blue. I think across the board,
Unless you're colorblind.
Western countries have
But I take your point.
adopted a justice system that doesn't get justice correct. And by every available metric, we are being failed, we are being put at risk by people who would rather tell us that the things we can observe and see and that are happening to us are not
Yeah,
actually happening.
our
And like
observable
I said,
reality
these
is
are leaders
incorrect.
who like to hide behind all sorts of excuses like mental health or cultural differences or just simply not wanting to be labeled racist by calling a spade a spade. And so, as a result, there are a lot of people who deserve to be in prison who instead are being given a slap on the wrist. And
Yeah, like you can make the argument that, oh, not all insert demographic does X. It's like, I had a thing with a friend recently over because a couple of weeks back it was the 11th, right? 11th of September, 9/11, and he said to me, "Oh, not all Muslims are radicals, radical jihadists." And yeah, it's a good point, but it's a reasonable argument to make. But unfortunately, it's kind of weak in that you can say as much as you can say not all Muslims are radical jihadists bent on seeing the West destroyed and whatnot. Um, I can also throw it back and say, yeah, but not all of them aren't either. So it's not a particularly strong argument.
to be clear, this isn't only an American problem. This exists throughout the entire Western world. Although I am prepared to learn Polish, considering that the people in the UK have fumbled the homeland. If you cast your minds back to the last 6 months or so, several events have taken place in Western countries where women particularly have been victimized, and the events surrounding those victimizations have gone very, very viral. A notable example here in the US happened in July 2025 when a woman in Cincinnati was beaten to a pulp by a group of people after she reportedly jumped into a street brawl to help another man who was being attacked. This story went insanely.
Um, I can see why that's a problem, but you don't jump into a street brawl and not expect to get your ass beat.
Viral, especially after the woman, called Holly, was demonized by both the police and the media. When she finally spoke out, she didn't hold back.
We need more police officers, but like he said, you know, the judges who are just letting people out with a slap. The man who attacked me and might have permanently damaged me forever should never have been on the streets, ever. And the fact that he had just gotten out of jail previously for something, he should have been in there for years. It's really sad to me because I can't even fathom how many other people who have been attacked by the same type of man over and over and over. In Toledo, in Columbus, Cincinnati, Dayton, our streets are being taken over and nobody is doing anything.
Towards the end of August 2025,
True.
a woman's story went viral after she was murdered by an asylum seeker in the Netherlands while
An asylum seeker, yeah.
on the phone to police.
So why is he seeking asylum?
The suspect in the situation was also charged about 2 weeks earlier for beating and essaying another woman. In
Gee, why was he seeking asylum?
both of these cases, authorities failed to act decisively, which let violent people back onto the streets to reoffend, to victimize new people, all because they seemingly were more concerned with the controversy of keeping these people imprisoned. Also, the laws around all of this are pretty crap, if I'm being totally honest.
Yep.
In Washington, D.C., an illegal immigrant from Honduras was recently found to be incompetent to stand trial for his crimes against a woman that he dragged onto the ground and assaulted while she was out walking. The suspect had a laundry list of prior violations, including accusations of adult activity crimes and resisting arrest. Sorry about the wording here. You guys know how YouTube is.
Yeah,
In
they don't
August
like.
2025, another woman was assaulted in the middle of the day while out for a run in New Haven, Connecticut. The suspect, another illegal immigrant, held a box cutter to her neck during the ordeal. He has a previous and long history of assault and has been deported twice during Trump's first term, returning to the country
Wow.
after an unknown time and living in the area unaffected, just going about his life. Also in August,
See, so he was deported twice, then he comes back in after a while and he just goes about his life unaffected, and then he just assaults somebody. Like, why, dude? Just live your life. Leave other people alone. What the hell?
19-year-old illegal immigrant from Guatemala was arrested after beating a pregnant woman who stabbed him in self-defense. Of course, these situations do focus on illegal immigration, but they are symptomatic of policy failures that do not protect the public safety.
Yeah.
And then you have all the smelly hippies who have the goal to be protesting outside of ICE facilities. Go home, smelly hippies.
Yeah, take a shower.
Or, I don't know, conversely, develop some sort of interest in the safety of your fellow citizens. You absolutely...
Yeah, it's funny how they're all about, oh, human rights, but you know what? What about that woman's right to walk around, to go for a run in a park and not get sexually assaulted? What about that woman who got dragged out and beaten by that other dude? What about her right not to have that happen to her? You know, it's funny how it's always the human rights about the worst people in the world.
Anyway, I could probably find you 500 more examples of exactly this kind of a story where an asylum seeker or an illegal migrant or even a legal migrant who has chosen not to assimilate has harmed somebody in our communities.
Yep.
And then there are the citizens who are repeat violent offenders, who at some point should have been caught by the system, but instead have been let out and have gone on to very much hurt other people. These human beings are the very reason
I would hesitate to call them human.
why I will never stop being pro capital punishment. That might be upsetting to some of you, but I think that firing squads can solve many problems.
Yeah, and you wouldn't have to do it. Look, if the cost to benefit ratio of committing crimes, especially violent and crimes of a sexual nature, if the cost to benefit, if the penalty for those crimes is you are going to get shot by firing squad or lethal injection or hanged or guillotine or whatever, if the penalty for those crimes is an end to your existence, I don't think you'd have to do it for very long, because people be like, well, I suppose that you'd always get you'd always get some who wouldn't, but for me, I think it would be like, maybe I should restrain myself, because if I do go through with it, maybe I'm getting the hangman's noose next,
I'm just saying. Only a few days ago in New York City, a man with 18 prior arrests who had only just been arrested for assault and released 2 days earlier threw a police officer onto train tracks. In October 2024, another man with 21 prior arrests was
21
charged
prior
after
arrests.
assaulting an 81-year-old woman. Similarly, an 85-year-old woman was brutally assaulted and put into a coma when a man with at least 9 prior arrests that included violence against women forced his way into her home. In June 2024, a man was hacked to death with a machete by a career criminal who had been let out no less than 11 other times. The criminal had been charged with arson, assault, attempted murder, and unlawful carry of a weapon. And this also goes on and on and on and on. In fact,
That's insane.
Most of the examples that I am using here are only from the last month or so, and when my friend and I were collecting stories for this video, we were both getting very, very distressed just finding out how much this happens.
Like, if those like 3 or 4 incidents are just from the last month, how many of them throughout the year?
And how common it is, and how awful the crimes are that are being committed.
Oh hey, it's time for a serious video puppy break. Shall I join you in searching for something outside? Oh, we're looking?
The floofies.
We are looking outside. Beautiful times, children, beautiful times. Don't punch my window.
So there are many questions
Don't punch
that
my
persist,
window.
but one of the biggest ones is, why does it take a young woman being stabbed to death on public transport by a 14-time repeat offender for officials to care?
And why does she have to be a Ukrainian refugee?
Why are we being gaslit? And I hate that term, but I do think it's applicable here. Why are we being gaslit by officials and these authorities and these justice advocates who keep downplaying what is happening and hiding the violence of offenders behind the veil of mental health. Why do these people keep prioritizing?
Do you know what they did a couple hundred years ago? Not even 100 years. Okay, maybe 100 years ago. I don't remember when the last asylum was actually closed. But violent offenders who had mental health issues were sent to an asylum. That's what prisons are for. It's not there to punish people. It's to keep the antisocial, violent elements out of society. Those people who cannot integrate, who will not integrate, and who cannot coexist with other people peacefully. It's to give them a space where they can be the absolute garbage person they are without hurting anybody. But perhaps apart from maybe other garbage humans. But, you get the point.
Progressivism and compassion over the actual physical safety of others.
And why is progressivism almost always regressive?
I find actually really depressing about this isn't a new position. This has been going on for a very, very long time. When I was doing my undergraduate degree a million years ago, I actually majored in criminology with the intention of going into law, which I didn't do. Sorry, Mum and Dad. But when
No,
I
you became a
did my
YouTuber instead.
degree, you would have kids in my classes who would make these same arguments. Oh, we need to be compassionate. We need to.
No. Do you think the dude who murders the dude who assaulted the 87-year-old grandmother, what was it, 80-something-year-old grandmother, was he compassionate while he was beating her within an inch of her life? No. So, you know what? He doesn't deserve any compassion from anybody else.
Prioritize rehabilitation. We need to prioritize.
Somebody who has been arrested going into the double digits. The one dude was arrested 21 times. You're not rehabilitating that guy. You're not. You're just not. It's pathological, habitual. Send him to prison. Send him to an asylum if he's mentally ill. Just get him out of society. That's what you need to do with people like that.
Thoughts and feelings of offenders, and I used to sit there thinking, what is wrong with you? What do you mean? Violent offenders, a lot of them, I don't think can be rehabilitated.
No.
I don't know why this is the emphasis.
In particular, crimes of a sexual nature have the highest rate of recidivism among any crimes out there, in particular where it comes to children.
Place on so much of this. It drives me crazy. And because we love to add insult to injury here on this channel, politicians and police forces and the justice system are focusing on all the wrong things.
As they tend to.
Really.
No.
UK cops focus their attention on catching catcallers. That is, I'm not joking. Or covering up grooming gangs because they don't want to be called racist. Australian politicians are asking people to hand in their machetes to drop-off points.
Oh my God.
Of addressing who is doing the macheteing, for lack of a better description.
Yeah, that's like going to US gangs and saying, "Hey, hand in your guns." Criminals don't care about the rules of the law.
American officials like to go the extra step and actually arrest.
The nose ring tells me everything already.
People who step in to defend others, like Daniel Penny, for example. On that front, an American guy actually was recently stabbed in the face after he stepped in to defend two women in Dresden, Germany, who were being harassed by two Syrian nationals.
Good man.
Of course, that young man was dragged in the media for being anti-immigration and racist when he said that Germany has a migrant problem. Except, where's the lie? Germany does have a migrant problem.
Yeah, it does. They're protesting in the streets. I see, like every other week, I see reels about protests in Germany.
Actually at the forefront of many of their elections, just like it is in France and in Sweden and in many other European countries.
Yep.
And in Germany's case, you have women who are being brutalized, just living, walking down the street, existing. You have terrorists committing terrorist acts by driving cars into Christmas parades. And perhaps the most depressing part of that realization is that officials spend more time punishing people who speak out against these things than they do actually addressing them.
Yep.
So the deeper issue here is a justice system that fails to act, that allows repeat offenders to walk free, and then punishes its citizens when they happen to notice. And I do want to focus attention squarely on the mass immigration issue for a moment here, because I do think that many of the stupid, terrible policies that are in place the soft on crime policies that we have in place have really amplified the ill effects of this mass immigration movement. And I will
Yep.
say here that I really do have some quite complicated feelings towards immigration generally, because I know migrants um, who've come to this country who are great people who contribute, who have assimilated, who have American friends, and
Yep.
are so about being American and Americanized.
It's another case of uh, not all migrants are these people causing problems. Unfortunately, not all of them aren't either. You'll, in almost every case you can imagine, you'll have your exceptions. Unfortunately, in what she's describing here, that is the exception to the rule.
Um, and those are the migrants I don't have issue with. You know, if
Yeah,
you're coming here to contribute meaningfully and you want to be part of your host country and you want to become a citizen of your host country in a way that, you know, you feel pride and nationalism towards that country, that's great. But if
yeah,
your intention is to come here and to build an enclave, you know, we got
yes,
problems.
yeah,
The answer to the influx of non assimilating immigration doesn't seem to be to address the problem, but to shame citizens who are alarmed by rising crime and the third worldification of the West.
yeah.
Because let me remind you that the UK has one of the highest rates of acid attacks globally. Let me remind you that FGM is rising in popularity in Western countries.
What is FGM? I don't know what FGM is.
Let me remind you that in my home country, Australia, a mother stabbed her daughter in the back with a kitchen knife because the girl had converted to Christianity and had a boyfriend. And
Wow.
this just happened very recently. But I guess, you know, on the plus side, this is a step up from the poor girls who are honor killed and end up hacked up in a suitcase. Then I guess we have the added bonus of electing foreign born people to positions of power who can tell us that the risk is actually just white men. You know, they're just risky to everything.
I would say our country should be more fearful of white men across our country, because they are actually causing most of the deaths within this country.
On a personal level,
What a
one
load
of
of
the
crap.
things that has always upset me about crime in general, but more specifically crime perpetrated by migrants and migrant groups, is how judges and justice officials will often chalk their criminality up to cultural differences.
Yeah.
And that is a perfect example of the authorities basically throwing justice in the bin for the sake of optics.
Yeah, and so if you're going to excuse crime based on quote unquote cultural differences because they're migrants, um, it's only natural then that people become sort of anti-immigration because, okay, so this dude came from Syria or wherever, and he's brutally assaulted people, maybe even murdered somebody, and we're going to chalk it up to, give him a slap on the wrist, chalk it up to cultural differences and deport him maybe. What's that say about everybody else who comes from the same region? Of course, people are then going to look at it, and then you only need like an extra one or two other people from the same region to do the same, to commit crimes, and people are going to start, pattern recognition is going to kick in, and they're going to be like, hang on, that is a disruptive culture in our country. Think of Japan, think of Johnny Somali with Japan, think of him with South Korea. And now, last I saw, I don't know, it's not likely he'll ever get the life sentence, but it's not looking too good for Johnny Somali. And then you see guys like Ice Poseidon who started the whole nuisance streamer nonsense off, and yep, every other week again I'm seeing on my Instagram reels, I'm seeing nuisance streamers in Japan. There was one from Peru, I think it was, or Spain or something, and he assaulted an old guy on stream. Um, okay, the old guy was pestering him a bit, but he was sitting in a chair in a seat designated for the elderly and disabled. So, you know, he's not where he's supposed to be in Japan. That is, they are sticklers for the rules in Japan, and you got to know that before you even go there, because otherwise you're going to cause problems, and you're going to have a problem with them too. So, you know, but now with the rise of nuisance streamers, people are reporting that police just randomly search their bags and stuff, and we had foreigners. Foreigners are banned from streets in Gion, in Kyoto, and it's not an accident that it's foreigners being targeted with these measures because the pattern is quite clear. So it's the same with this sort of thing.
I have been told time and again that the cultural differences thing isn't actually happening on a justice level, but that is untrue. It is observable. You can find plenty of stories about it. Lots of women, especially, can testify to this being their experience, and it's been my experience. Many moons ago, and I don't want to get into detail about this, it's not that interesting, but many moons ago, I had the unfortunate experience of being indecently assaulted by a non-Australian person. And
I'm sorry that happened to you,
the
Sydney.
situation progressed, the police inevitably said to me that if it went to court, it would be thrown out for cultural differences. And you know what? They were probably right.
Yeah.
They were probably right, because we have seen that very situation play out time and time and time again. These cases are not remotely challenging to find, but one that all of you might remember happened in 2016 in Germany and involved a group of Afghan and Syrian migrants who were acquitted of SA because their defense argued that they were not aware of German cultural norms around consent.
Okay, so that's a flimsy excuse, and one that can be solved with orientation. Once you land in Germany, or before you even leave where you're going, or it doesn't have to be Germany, it can be literally anywhere, like if you're going to Japan, once you land, or before you even leave your country, you should be told you should have to pass an orientation test. And like somebody from, let's say I wanted to go to Japan, someone from the embassy who is a cultural advisor or whatever for Japan will run a sort of orientation, and they have to sign off with confidence that you know what you're about when you're in there. I feel like that would go a long way to solving this sort of thing, so you can't use cultural differences as a flimsy excuse for being disruptive.
Oh, I hate it here. This is insane, not only because it alienates victims, but because it also teaches offenders that this is a viable excuse under the
Yes.
law. If you don't understand the culture of the place that you've gone to live, to the extent that you are committing crimes within that culture, you shouldn't live in that country.
And it's not just, I commit a crime because I don't know the culture. Okay, so we'll let you off with cultural differences. They continue to commit the crimes after that. That's the big issue.
It shouldn't be this rule for this group and this rule for this group. That's honestly very antithetical to a functional, harmonious society, and yet for some reason it's this weird place that we're kind of existing in right now.
And it's time for another puppy break. You can hear him in the background.
Yeah.
Do you have an opinion?
Oh, he's beautiful.
Do you have an opinion on squirrels?
So what about this weird crossroads here where the more that politicians and the media and officials and whoever downplay what is happening right in front of our eyes, the angrier and angrier that the general population gets. And the irony is that it doesn't actually help migrants. It doesn't actually help offenders. It just makes people angrier and angrier and angrier.
And it certainly doesn't help the victims either.
Angrier towards these specific groups. So that's why my position here is simply that we shouldn't have to live like this. Women and girls should not be stabbed to death coming home from a party just having fun on a night out. Women shouldn't have to carry lethal and non-lethal weapons to protect themselves out in the world because men are no longer able to defend them, because if they do, they themselves are murdered or they end up in prison, again, like in the case of Daniel.
Do you know what? Gods be good, I'll never have to find out, but I'd hope that if I ever saw a woman under attack, I would give my life to go and help out, to save her. I'm pretty sure, given my physical condition, I would be killed 10 times out of 10. But you know what? Putting my life on the line to save somebody else, I think that's a decent way to go.
penny. It's probably worth noting that non-lethal weapons are illegal in places like Australia and the UK, just by the way. And officials in Canada have point-blank told people to just let other people rob you as not to die in the process. By the way, I
Yeah, I
don't
saw
think it
that.
should be this way where we have to carry weapons, but I do think that if you have the ability to, you should. But obviously
Yes,
just know how
I
to use
agree.
them because, you know, you don't want to you don't want to do something stupid, especially with a pew pew stick, you know, because those things are dangerous. The bottom line
Yep.
for me is that it's incredibly upsetting and frustrating watching elected officials and people in the justice system deny what's happening to tell us that there's no problem. It feels like they are both denying reality, and again, I hate this word, but really gaslighting the population because
Because that's
a lot of
exactly what
this
they
is
are doing.
observable, and a lot of it's happening to people at a higher and higher frequency. And you know, I
Yep.
actually think it's totally mad to disarm your population and then force them to rely on a very broken policing and justice system for protection.
Yes,
But
exactly.
more than that, sweeping the safety and security of your citizens under the rug in order to avoid looking racist is asinine. And
Well, you see, that's where Poland doesn't give a shit. Poland says you come here, you follow our rules, or you get out. And if you try to cross the border illegally, we'll shoot you. You know, and well, Poland doesn't have a migrant problem. The streets are clean. It actually looks quite beautiful. I'd like to go there one day.
endangering people for the sake of optics or feelings is suicidal behavior. Despite the arguments that I am making here and the way that I have presented this video, I do think that it's worth saying that I do have conflicted feelings about more policing and more regulation and more
Yeah, yeah.
law. Um, because I do come from a country that loves to make laws around everything, whether it solves a problem or not. And I
Yes.
want to be clear that I don't really know where the line is on some of this. I don't know how many laws need to be passed to ensure that society can go back to being polite and respectful and where people act correctly. I don't know how I feel about politicians having more power. I don't know how I feel about police having more power because, as I have said previously in other videos, my life objective is to be left the hell alone. But
Yes.
I do think that we can say with relative certainty that had better written laws existed, and when I say better written, I don't necessarily mean what
I don't think the laws are the problem. I think it's the culture and attitude of people these days that are the problem. You've got, perhaps you've seen them around. My mum likes to watch these videos of police body cam footage and stuff where women are being pulled over and she's drunk off her face, she can't stand up or whatever, and she's fighting the cops because she doesn't want to go to prison. And there's just no for me, it seems like there's a total lack of accountability, and nobody wants to take responsibility for their actions. Nobody has the guts to turn around and say, "Yeah, okay, I screwed up. I deserve the punishment." And I think when people can start doing that again, and when they can realize that, you know what, the punishment just doesn't fit. The punishment just isn't worth the joy of breaking the rules at the time. Um, I think you'll start to see a paradigm shift where crimes begin to get less frequent and certainly less violent. So I think it's not a law issue, it's a people issue.
ones that infringe upon people's civil liberties or
Mhm.
certainty, that had better written laws existed. And when I say better written, I don't necessarily mean ones that infringe upon people's civil liberties or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
But had better laws existed, maybe Arena would be alive. And maybe if European countries stopped demonizing their native populations and their citizens for feeling frustrated by and noticing and having something to say about the terribleness associated with mass immigration, particularly the mass immigration that circles this group of fighting aged young men from really third world countries, maybe little girls wouldn't have to run around with weapons.
Yeah. Although I'm thinking of in the UK, like millions of Union Jacks and St. George's crosses were put up, and the government of the UK turns around and calls this calls this a hate crime. It's like, hello, dude, this is the flag of our country that we have lived in, that probably one of the oldest countries in the world. Like, there are pubs in the UK that are older than most countries. And he wants to turn around and say that flying these flags is now a hate crime. Okay, but then the one dude was arrested for hate speech because he asked a Muslim migrant to speak English. You know, he comes to England and is now arrested for a hate crime for hate speech because he asked the dude to speak English. You know, it's so stupid, and it's actually politicians like that that need to be done away with. You know, what is that? What is that donkey ride? What's that? Um, Punishment, riding a donkey backwards. What was that called? Riding a donkey backwards is a historical public humiliation for men. Yeah, but there was a specific name for it. This practice, part of a larger ritual known as a charivari. Okay, I suppose that was it. But yeah, riding a donkey backwards. A good example. Yeah, they basically strip you down and they put you on the back of a donkey and you ride. They put you backwards on a donkey and they just parade you around like that. It was ritual humiliation. And yeah, politicians like Keir Starmer, I think, need to do that.
Maybe
Need to have that done to
because
them.
they are Scottish. And I don't know about you guys, but I have met Scottish people.
What's that?
Maybe little girls wouldn't have to run around with weapons. Although maybe not, because they are Scottish. And I don't know about you guys, but I have met Scottish people, and they are their own brand of crazy. But they do have very cute accents.
Yeah, well, Billy Connolly referred to the Scottish as they're like the Irish, but a more mentally ill Irish. How they got to Scotland was they were like, "Come on, lads, I know an even rainier place."
So I'm not judging.
It's Billy Connolly. I can make jokes.
Man, I want to go back to Scotland and touch a rock. Anyway.
Long may your lung leap and may a moose never leave your gunwale with a teardrop in his eye.
At the end of the day, I know I've talked about immigration a lot in this video. This isn't just about immigration. It's obviously about crime. It's about the way that we deal with crime. It's about the fact that we should not have to exist in a society that basically puts the needs of criminals above the needs of law-abiding citizens.
And what that tends to cause is you see the old westerns. A particular scene in a 1990s movie called Tombstone comes to mind, where Texas Jack, Curly Creek Johnson and Texas Jack shoot these guys who crawfish a bit and called them a liar. They said it was a fair fight. The guys drew on them first and all. That's fine, but it's going to reach a point if things aren't done about the situations like Irina and the others Sydney's mentioned. It's going to reach a point where people are going to end up defending themselves with lethal force, and they're going to be casualties, and that's vigilante justice almost. The Punisher comes to mind.
This is about a justice system. This is about leaders who have lost their way, prioritizing appearances over the fundamental duty to protect.
Yep.
And we honestly deserve a lot better. So in the end, not only do citizens deserve a lot better, but also the law-abiding immigrants who have come to their host countries to assimilate and to become one with the native population as well.
Yep.
Because these people, bear in mind, are also being extremely negatively affected by the immigrants who don't do the right thing. And all of this
Yep, I mentioned Johnny Somali and
degradation. It's leading to a lack of social cohesion. And like I titled this video, and like I've already said, we should not have to live like this.
No, we
So
shouldn't.
on that very happy and pleasant note, and before I open the floor to all of you, this is just a reminder, check out FreeSpoke using the link in the description. I am really glad that they are the sponsor for this video because I actually think that they are extremely necessary in this period of time where information is very hard to come by. And
Well, information is not hard to come by, just reliable, solid, and accurate information is hard to come by.
really, really like what they stand for, and so I am very much excited for a bunch of you to give them a go. Now, I open the floor to all of you. What do you all think? Are you on my side of this issue where you're just honestly kind of exhausted by all of this?
Yeah,
and
I
you
am. Yep.
are so sick and tired of hearing about all of the ways that we're being failed by not just the justice system, but by our officials who don't seem to care about the interests of Native citizens. What do you think of the issues surrounding mass and illegal immigration? Do you think that this is not that big of a deal, that really it's being painted unfairly? Do you think that it is a big deal and actually we should be doing more about it? What do you think of the case surrounding Irina? Did it affect you in the same way that it affected a lot of us, where it brought you a tremendous amount of sadness? Do you think that laws could have prevented this from happening? Do you think this sort of behavior is inevitable in the societies that we live in? And what do you generally make of this issue overall? As always, if you have made it this far in the video, congratulations. I always like having you along for the full ride. If you are new here and you are not subscribed already and you would like to see
I'm
more
not
of me
subscribed,
and
but
more
I'm
content,
not
be sure to
new
subscribe
either.
to the channel, as well as leaving this video a like and a comment, because I do read the majority of them and I like hearing your feedback. Of course, on that note, I hope you wonderful little spoonbill noodle heads stay safe and well. I think a spoonbill is a bird of some description. Anyway, I hope you stay safe and well, little bird people, and I will see your wonderful little chicken faces in the next video.
Wonderful little chicken faces. Yeah, so she's absolutely right. We shouldn't have to live like this. Politicians and lawmakers need to be held accountable, and the judiciary, I think, also needs to be held accountable to some degree when they let people off for 21 after 21 arrests. You know, and I think if they're gonna continue to vilify and demonize people who do the right thing, people are gonna stop doing the right thing at the end of the day. And if they are not able to, if people cannot rely on the judiciary and law enforcement to protect them, then they've got to rely on themselves to protect themselves. And so if criminals can't fear the judiciary and law enforcement, they must then learn to fear their victims. And so and that's going to be a world of absolute chaos. So yeah, that's what I think, and that was Sydney Watson's video. Link to the original video will be down below. Be sure to check out my Poggers and Starforge. Your purchases will go a long way to helping me out and achieving my goals and dreams. Streams coming up tonight, probably every night this week, if I can manage it. Upload speeds were down the toilet last night, so I couldn't stream last night. So yeah, that's going to do it for this video. Take care, everybody. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.